putting up with their second son. The one who dropped out of medical school and is still living in the basement at 35. That line, spoken by Henry, my older brother, at our parents' 40th wedding anniversary party, still echoes in my mind. 2 months after that night, the room full of people burst out laughing. The sound of clinking glasses rang out like a mocking symphony. Someone even pointed at me, as if confirming the title of family disappointment that Henry had just awarded me was well-deserved. I could only smile, a stiff, twisted, bitter smile, while my hands trembled under the table. I tried so hard not to slam my hands on the table and stand up. I tried so hard not to scream, not to shout that I had dreams too, that I used to be an outstanding medical student, that I fought through mental breakdowns in the dark while the whole family turned their backs. But then I sat still. I, the failure. I, the second son, living in the basement. I, the one who dropped out of medical school on the final exam because I panicked so badly I lost control. Now working part-time at a hardware store, still having dinner with my parents every weekend, still awkwardly receiving my mom's pitying glances, and silently listening to Henry boast about his success like he was giving a sermon from his throne. And that night, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this continue. Before I tell you what happened after that, you need to know who I am, and why I once thought I would never be able to lift my head again. My name is Ethan. I'm 35 years old. I was once a top student at a prestigious medical school, until everything fell apart in my final year, as I prepared for my graduation exams. I don't remember exactly what triggered it. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the childhood dream that turned into a nightmare of adulthood. But I clearly remember the moment I sat in the library bathroom for 3 hours, my heart pounding like thunder, sweat pouring down, whispering to myself, I'm fine, I'm fine. After that, I had to quit school. I had no degree, no accolades, and I was stuck in a dead end with no way out. My parents didn't understand, and they didn't really try to. My mom cried. My dad sighed. Henry started mocking me from that moment on. He never missed an opportunity to make me the joke at every family gathering. He, Henry, was the perfect firstborn, financial advisor, big house, beautiful wife, a Leliana, an Instagram influencer with tens of thousands of followers, 2 kids that looked like models straight out of a Gap ad, a polished, glossy life, and fake. After that humiliating night, I went home early. Lying in the dark basement room, I opened, read it, scrolling through endless revenge stories, people standing up for themselves. Epic comebacks. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe just the feeling that I wasn't alone. Maybe just a spark deep inside me that started to ignite. The next morning was our Sunday family breakfast. I wasn't planning to go. But then I changed my clothes and stepped up from the basement like a traveler from hell. And then I heard something that made it impossible for me to stay quiet anymore. On the back porch, Henry and his partner, Baylor, were whispering. The window was open. I was in the kitchen getting some orange juice. Johnson still hasn't figured anything out, Baylor said. His daughter's suspicious, but the paperwork is tight. Push the meeting back, Henry said, his voice low. Just 2 more weeks, and we'll wrap up the Williams deal. I stood frozen. I didn't fully understand, but with the little financial knowledge I had and my instincts, I knew something was wrong. I pulled out my phone, hit record. They talked for another 10 minutes about asset transfer, reallocation, delaying. The terms started to sound more and more like a financial scam. I walked back to the dining room with my glass of orange juice in hand. Henry looked at me, flashed a sneer like he always did. But this time, I didn't look down like I usually did. I looked him straight in the eyes, and I could feel something change in me. That night, I began to plan. I was going to expose Henry, not just because he had humiliated me for my entire life, but because, for the first time, I saw an opportunity to bring someone who'd always looked down on me crashing down, publicly. I wasn't trembling anymore. I wasn't lying still anymore. I had woken up, and the storm I was about to bring would be unstoppable. The joke's over, Henry. The thing is, you just don't realize you're already at the final act. There's a strange advantage when people think you're a failure. You become invisible. And when you're invisible, you can hear things no one wants you to hear, see things others try to hide, and act without anyone suspecting. I started that very day. After recording Henry and Baylor's conversation on the back deck, I went back to my basement room, the cave that my whole family saw as a symbol of my unsuccessful life, and fired up my old computer. That was the start of an investigation campaign that I swore I would see through to the end. You remember Eliana, Henry's wife, right? She's the picture-perfect social media woman, beautiful, vegetarian, yoga every morning, organic coffee, 50,000 Instagram followers, with hashtags like #mom, life #Sunday, vibes #blessed. But there was one thing I'd noticed over the time. She often complained about headaches, little grumbles at family dinners, rubbing her forehead when the kids yelled too loud, stories about naps being interrupted by stress. What she didn't know was that I, the guy who dropped out of med school, still remembered exactly what I learned, especially about stress and the neurological symptoms that go with it. I waited for the right moment. One afternoon by chance, well, not really by chance, I ran into her at Target, browsing the pharmacy aisle. Ibuprofen doesn't do much for stress headaches, I said, like it was just a casual remark from someone with a little knowledge. Eliana looked at me slightly surprised. I started offering a few suggestions. Some meds, sleep therapy, even deep breathing techniques. She started asking more. And in just 3 minutes, I had become her unofficial doctor. From then on, we messaged more often. About health, then about the kids, then about Henry. Before long, Eliana started opening up. A few little complaints. About Henry working late all the time, not having dinner with the family. About how he always kept his phone close by, sometimes laughing to himself while looking at the screen. I didn't ask more. I just suggested. Have you ever noticed Henry being a little too close with someone at the gym? I'm just curious, but a few times he came home smelling of a cologne that seemed a bit off. Just plant a seed, and then I just sat back and waited for it to sprout. No one suspected when I started asking about investments at family dinners. I told them I was thinking about managing my finances better. Henry jumped right in, excited. Finally growing up, huh? He laughed. I swallowed that insult and let him go on and on. I took mental notes of every word. Flexible investment strategies, capital allocation, asset transfers between funds. I began cross-referencing data from our conversations, jotting everything down in a Google Docs file, tentatively named Take Down Henry, Stage 1. One Sunday evening, Henry forgot to log out of his email on my parents' computer after helping them check their bank accounts. I had less than 20 minutes before someone came downstairs. My hands were shaking, but I moved quickly, screenshotting all the meeting schedules, forwarding the important emails to a temporary account, and especially a chain of emails with a name. Kylie, not a client, but a mistress. Maybe that was the last straw. I had the initial recording of Henry and Baylor, the meeting schedules of Henry meeting elderly clients regularly, signs of a Ponzi scheme, emails between Henry and Kylie, proof of the affair, messages from Eliana showing her doubts and dissatisfaction, traces of shady money transfers from my parents' account to Henry's personal investment portfolio. 2 months after being publicly humiliated, I now had the map that would lead to Henry's career death. The day he would receive his Financial Advisor of the Year award was fast approaching. The whole city would witness it. My parents would be there. Eliana would be live streaming. Friends, colleagues, clients, all would congratulate him. I had scheduled the automatic email to send at exactly 2 p.m., just as Henry stepped onto the stage. Each email contained its own bundle of evidence for the relevant recipient: wife, clients, partners, parents. I was no longer the guy living in the basement. I was the nightmare Henry never saw coming. You thought I was just a failure living in the basement. Well, look who's quietly holding the button that will end your whole play. I woke up earlier than usual. The sky was overcast that day. Or maybe it was just my mood that made everything feel heavy. At 6 a.m., my mom knocked on the basement door. She made blueberry pancakes, my favorite from childhood. Her voice was soft, gentle, almost enough to make me soften. You seem more awake today. Something good going on? I just smiled. Maybe. It's a big day. And it really was. Today was the day Henry would receive the Financial Advisor of the Year award, a lavish ceremony held at the city's most luxurious hotel. There would be a buffet, champagne, VIP seating, and even a live stream for partners who couldn't attend. As for me, I had the perfect plan to turn this awards ceremony into a funeral for the image Henry had built over the past 15 years. 9 a.m., the fake interview. I grabbed my backpack and headed out, with my mom wishing me luck. Go for it. You deserve a fresh start. I smiled. If she only knew which fresh start was waiting for Henry. I didn't go to any interviews. Instead, I went to a cafe about 20 minutes away from the awards venue. I chose a corner table, plugged in my headphones, and fired up my laptop. All the emails containing evidence were scheduled to be sent at 2 p.m. One for Eliana, with screenshots of the affair chats between Henry and Kylie. One for the major partners and clients, detailing the Ponzi financial scheme, with clear proof from internal emails. One for my parents, attached with information about Henry withdrawing funds from their retirement account without informing them. And one for the State Financial Oversight Committee, anonymous, but with full evidence. 1:55 p.m., I closed my laptop, took a deep breath. 2 p.m., boom! 2:07 p.m., the first message. A message from Eliana. What is this? Just 3 words. Not angry, no shouting, just cold. A few minutes later, I went on Instagram. Eliana was live streaming, her face pale, mascara running, her voice choking on every sentence. To all my loved ones. I know I always share the best, happiest moments. But today, I have to be honest. My husband, the one I trusted, has betrayed me. Not just me, but also everyone who trusted him with their finances. In the background, Henry trying to grab the phone out of her hand, shouting, "Turn it off! What the hell are you doing? There was the sound of a glass breaking. A scream. The screen shook, then went black. 2:15 p.m. My phone starts buzzing. A flood of messages from my mom. Ethan? Is this for real? Where are you? Oh my God, Henry just got a call from the financial committee. My dad calls. I don't answer. Henry calls. 3 times. I still stay silent. A message from Baylor, Henry's partner, shows up with just one line. You're fucking crazy. Do you know what you just did? Yeah, I know, very well. I just shattered the false world Henry built from lies, secret money transfers, and a perfect image. 3 p.m., the final blow. A guest at the awards ceremony tweeted a video from the live stream with the caption, a ceremony that ended like a soap opera. Financial Advisor of the Year? No. Best Actor of the Year? More like it. That tweet went viral. Over 20,000 shares in 3 hours. Local news covered it that night, including a clip from Eliana's live stream. Henry was no longer the golden child. 9 p.m., I get the first call from my mom. She didn't ask me why I did it. She didn't yell. No tears. She just said, I know you're very smart. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I stayed silent for a moment, then replied, I don't need you to apologize. I just need you to see me as a person. That night I lay in the old single bed at a nearby motel, staring at the ceiling and smiling. Not out of joy, not out of satisfaction, but simply because, for the first time in many years, I didn't feel afraid when I thought of Henry's name. Everything felt strangely quiet. No more echoes of disappointment lingering in my mind. No more mocking laughter from Henry. No more the invisible regret in my mom's gaze. It was just me, in the dark, with one clear feeling: I did it. 7 a.m. the next morning, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. A message from Eliana. We need to talk. I didn't know what was waiting for me in that meeting. A reprimand? A slap? Or maybe a hug? I went to the cafe where we had agreed to meet. Eliana was sitting there, no makeup, messy hair in a bun, wearing an oversized hoodie, completely different from the 50,000 follower Instagram goddess that everyone adored. When I sat down, she didn't say anything for a few seconds. She just looked at me as if trying to figure out if I was really the one behind the storm. How long have you known? I was honest. Since that day, the anniversary party. Right when Henry raised his glass, she nodded. I should have known. Only someone deeply hurt can be that ruthless. She didn't blame me. She didn't defend Henry. She just talked about the time she tried to confront him. About the nights spent sitting alone, watching the cameras to see if her husband was really staying late at the office. About the tears falling on the laptop keys when she had to rewrite the caption for A Perfect Family. I hate him, but I also hate myself for trusting and staying silent. I looked at her, for the first time, as someone who understood, not just the perfect sister-in-law. No one deserves that. Not me, and not you. She smiled, soft, sad, but real. But before she left, she simply said, thank you for destroying it. Sometimes you have to break everything to see what you've really been living in. When I got home, my dad was sitting on the porch, a cigarette still unlit between his trembling fingers. It was the first time I'd seen him like this. Small, fragile, and it seemed like he had lost his way. As I approached, he simply said, you were right, but it hurts. I didn't respond. I just sat beside him. My mom, meanwhile, was in the kitchen, cleaning mindlessly. I could see her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. Henry's gone, she said without turning around. The police are working with his lawyer. We don't have any savings left. I clearly heard the we. For the first time, I wasn't an outsider anymore. Not the failure living in the basement. I was we. That afternoon, I began packing my things, not because I was being kicked out or out of anger, but because I had finished my role here. The second son, the failure of the family, the one who lived in the basement and was the punchline of every joke, had finished his act. My phone rang. It was Henry. I hadn't planned on answering. But then I hit the answer button. His voice was raspy. You've ruined me. You won. I waited for the threat or some insult, but it was just silence. Then a small, almost imperceptible voice, barely audible through the phone. I wish I hadn't had to keep pretending for the last 20 years. It wasn't an apology, but it was a crack, a confession. I never thought I'd hear it from Henry. I left the house at sunset, my backpack slung over my shoulder with just a laptop and a strange feeling. I wasn't Ethan, the one living in the basement anymore. I was Ethan, the one who dared to stand up to a system that had consumed me for years. The next morning after leaving my parents' house, I stopped at a rundown motel more than 40 miles away. The room smelled musty, the curtains were torn, and the TV remote had to be hit a few times before it worked. But to me, it felt like a palace. For the first time in years, I slept soundly. No nightmares of Henry mocking me. No dreams of my parents looking at me with pity. No dreams of the hospital hallways. The future I once thought was mine. Just darkness and peace. It's been 7 years since I dropped out of med school, a tattered resume full of gaps. But I still carry the mindset of someone who almost became a doctor. And now I have something else. I'm ready to have the courage to start from zero again. I typed each line slowly. Ethan Walker, 35 years old. Was a medical student, but had to drop out due to mental health issues. Experienced in customer service, crisis management, and deep research. And now I'm seeking a place that can give me a chance to reinvent myself. It's not glamorous, it's not impressive, but it's honest. I signed up for an online class, but not in medicine. I chose psychology, with a focus on trauma and recovery. Part of it is because I've lived through it. Part of it is because I want to understand myself. Maybe one day, I'll become the person I needed when I was 28. Someone who can sit with you and say, "You're not broken. You're just confused." I got a text from my mom. "Dad wants to know if you're okay." That's all. No question mark. No emojis. But I knew. This was the first time he actually wanted to know how I was. I replied, "I'm okay, but I need time." I moved in with my cousin. He has a small apartment on the second floor of an old building, but it's warm and quiet. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. "Just don't mess up my coffee machine." We laughed. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a burden. I got an email from Eliana. Subject line, "I told the kids." The message was short. They cried. Not because they lost their dad, but because they were finally allowed to admit that things aren't perfect. "Thank you." Attached was a picture of the two kids smiling brightly on the playground. No dad, no acting, just kids and sunlight. Henry called me, but I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Ethan, I'm going to rehab. Not for the alcohol, but for everything else. I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for stopping me before I killed myself in a different way." I didn't know if it was real or just a last-ditch attempt at redemption, but I knew one thing. Maybe I didn't just destroy him. Maybe I saved him from the shell he'd been burning alive from the inside. I met with a therapist in the city, a salt and pepper-haired man with bright eyes who asked, "What do you want out of therapy?" I answered, "I want to stop shaking every time I think about myself." And he nodded. We began the work. Some tragedies start with a cruel joke and end with someone standing up not to take revenge, but to live authentically. I am Ethan. I was humiliated in front of my family by my own relatives because I wasn't successful. I lived in the basement. I thought my worth was nothing, but now I know. I can break, but I won't shatter. I can get lost, but I'm not useless. I can be looked down on, but I won't look down on myself anymore. This isn't the end. This is the first page of the life I'm writing. If you've ever been looked down on, ever been hurt by those you love the most, leave a comment. I want to hear your story. If you see yourself in this story, share it with someone who needs a reminder. Your value doesn't lie in how others see you. It lies in how you see yourself. And if you want to join me for more dramatic, emotional stories with twists like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of the next chapters. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again in another story, another storm, and another time to stand tall.